sexy, outstanding people. This is Zach Couples from ZachCouples.com, and I'm bringing you a little something from the Zach Couples Show. Because today's a travel day, I can't debrief, but I gotta give the fam a little something if you know what I'm sizzling. In case you don't know what I'm sizzling, here's what we're talking about today. Better breathing buy-in. Alliteration, what you gonna do about it? I get a lot of questions from fam such as yourself, wondering, Zach, you do some weird, wild, and crazy things. How do you get buy-in to someone who maybe has an issue that is seemingly unrelated to do the things that you want them to do? Maybe they're seeing you for wrist pain. Why in the heck would I be breathing if my wrist hurts? Or maybe they're squatting. Why would filling my upper back up help me squat more effectively? These are good questions and good situations that I have both had many successes in explaining to people and also many failures. But it has been the amalgamation of those successes and failures that has led to me thinking of educating people in a 4-step process with one thing in mind, and that is the outcome. Not the outcome that we want as movement practitioners, but the outcome that the client wants. They want their wrist to feel better. They want to squat so they can get that badunkadunk, like Big Z, and it is big, don't get it twisted. That's what we always have to keep in mind. When we are going to educate our people, we have to understand thoroughly first what outcome they want. That occurs by listening to them, hearing their story, hearing their concerns, what their barriers are. This is all incredibly important because it builds that rapport and connection, helps you establish trust with the person you're working with, and that is going to be a huge, huge step in attaining buy-in for some of the silly things that we're going to have people doing. It's not silly, but it seems silly. It's effective, actually. With the outcome in mind, here is how we can educate our people to let them know that the stuff that we're doing, while seemingly unrelated, is critical to helping them meet whatever their outcome is that they desire. The first piece is to set the stage. I have a friend of mine, she's a dear friend, who's all about setting expectations. This is what you're doing. You want to let people know what they're getting into from the outset, no surprises. Usually, after a patient or a client has told me their goals, I assimilate them and I keep them in the back of my head because throughout the whole educational process, I'm going to be peppering them with that goal. It might start off like this. Thank you so much for answering all my questions and telling me about why you're here. That's incredibly helpful for me because it allows me to make more informed decisions. I'm thanking them for playing an active role in this process. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to take a look at just about everything on you. Boom, I've set the stage. They're going to get a very thorough evaluation. And I might even say, we're going to do a very thorough evaluation on you. And here's where you can link unrelated complaint to related stuff. Your whole body moves as a cohesive unit and works together. People understand this because I think we've all been in pain and we compensate when we're in pain. People understand that. Oh yeah, my hip hurt and then I was walking funky and now my other hip hurts, as does my elbow. This happens all the time. Your whole body moves as a cohesive unit. And a lot of times what can happen in order to manage the stressors that you undergo, both within your body and in the environment. And I use that term very loosely, and I make sure I tell people that because I don't want to convey that people are stressed out and that's the problem, even though that is the problem. But I'll say things like a stressor could be the mechanism of injury that you've had, or that you didn't sleep well one night, or that you have a loss of movement somewhere. All of those could be stressors. But in order to manage those stressors, your body may utilize protective strategies by reducing movement in particular areas. This is how we can illustrate to our people that movement limitations happen. And this can be either in pain or with squatting. Squatting is challenging for you because you have to manage certain things in order to do that task, so your body takes the path of least resistance to make that movement happen. A lot of times, this can result in movement limitations. Movement limitations can increase pressure and strain in particular areas. If you're in pain, maybe that increases the amount of load you have to undergo with your wrist when you are opening doors. There would be an example. Boom, I just linked it to the outcome. For the person squatting, you're using movement limitations because a squat is a challenging task for you to complete. You run out of room faster and you can't get the depth you want. Relating it back to their outcome. What we're gonna do is, once we've figured out where you can't move, we're going to do activities that are going to focus on restoring those movement limitations. The hope would be that that evens out the workload throughout your body, which can help with pain on one side, or help you, more importantly, do the tasks that you are having a hard time doing. Or if we restore your movement capabilities, that may allow you to squat deeper. That may allow you to reach more effectively because you're not running into end range at your shoulder blade, for example, which will ultimately allow you to reach your fitness goals. Do you have any questions before we get started? That's how I will end the talk. Usually most people are nodding along because I think that they get the concepts of, yes, we compensate when we're hurting or when we can't move. Yes, the body works together because we compensate, and it makes sense that we would restore movement everywhere because people get the evening out the workload piece. If one part of you is working overtime, then that probably means another place is underworking. So if we can get you to get your shoulder working a little bit more effectively, maybe that's less stress here because the workload is evenly distributed. No one likes to work two jobs at once. Most people appreciate that. So number one, set the stage. Number two, show how the movement limitations that they have relate to their outcome. You've done a thorough assessment. You have a picture of where they can and can't move. If you need a thorough assessment, definitely come to my seminar. Side note. Your job is to show how these movement limitations are related to the main problem that they're seeing you for. If it's your wrist pain person, what I may say is, hey, your wrist checks out great, so does your elbow. This is good. What I think's happening though is your shoulder doesn't really move so well, and that's oftentimes related to how well you can move air and move your upper trunk. So what may happen is, because this area is not moving effectively, this area has had to take up the amount of work it has to do in order to perform a twisting task or a reaching task or a grasping task. And maybe that extra workload in this area is a contributing factor to your pain. If we can improve your mobility here, that should even out the workload distribution, helping you with pain. Another great example, my knee hurts when I walk. Well, maybe because you can't extend your hip or move your hip all the way back when you walk, you gotta go a little bit more forward in the hip position, which may put a little bit more stress on your knee. If we loosen up your hip, that ought to reduce the amount of stress on your knees when you're walking. How about with something like our squat example? Guess what? You can't squat to full depth. Well, what's interesting is because you have a little bit more of a deeper curve in your lower back, because maybe of a rib cage strategy that you're utilizing, it's harder for you to close this down. So what happens is, as you descend down into a squat, you're hitting end range a lot sooner, and you just can't get the requisite amount of bending or roundedness to go to full depth. Therefore, maybe squatting is a little bit uncomfortable on your back, and it's not working the legs the way you so desire. So you pinpoint some of the biggest movement limitations that they have that may be contributing to why they are not reaching their goals effectively, whether that's pain-related or performance-related. You can see the common trend that I take what I know, or what we saw, and I relate it back to their goal. Then I would say, if we could improve the movement capabilities in the areas that hurt, that ought to allow you to go back to the task at hand, because now those areas aren't as stressed, or because now you have more motion to allow you to reach your fitness goals. Either of those strategies are quite effective. As long as you're relating back to the outcome as much as possible. You're putting it in their brain that this can help you achieve what's important to you. That's how you know you're going to win. Number 3, show how breathing can influence these limitations. A lot of times after I've asked if they have any questions about my spiel, I say, we're going to start with an exercise focused around breathing. Your whole body is involved every time you breathe in and breathe out. And it's an easy way to impact how your body moves. Because if you have wrist pain, you need a sturdy foundation for your arm to do all the wild and crazy things that it needs to do. Since your arms and your legs are attached to the body cavity, which is involved big time in breathing, we can utilize that particular breathing strategy to set a solid foundation for us to do the things we need to do with our arms. Or in the case of our squatter, if we can have you effectively get the air out, that can allow you to squat a little bit lower, because now you can close this front side because you've gotten all of the air and the gut materials back where they need to go, or you've reduced the extra volume of those things, which may be limiting their ability to go all the way down into a squat. Readily admit that this is going to be a little strange, because they're probably thinking, wow, breathing is going to really help my wrist. It's an easy sell when it's shoulder, because, well, most of your shoulder muscles actually attach to your rib cage. Or if it's lower back, well, guess what? Your diaphragm, your main breathing muscle, attaches to your low back. Or the pelvis, well, guess what? Every time you breathe in and breathe out, the goods are pushed downward, which will allow the pelvic muscles to engage or disengage, depending on where we're at in the breath cycle. All of those are easy sells. I get that this is very strange. But if we can get you to do this effectively, I think you will see some pretty remarkable changes in some of the areas that I showed to you were limited. Especially once we start incorporating things with the arms and the legs. And this is how you can bridge the gap from someone who's got a distal complaint, or you got someone who's has a hard time rowing or reaching or squatting. We're trying to coordinate this all together. But if we don't have the foundation in place, we're not going to maximize the results that we can get at the arms and the legs. Now, the 4th and most important key is executing. You've set the stage. You've shown how these limitations relate to the outcome that they want. You've educated them on how breathing can potentially impact that. Now you got to deliver. This involves expert level coaching with the task at hand, focusing predominantly on whatever is most important to reaching that specific outcome. For what we do as movement professionals, it is making sure that the breathing mechanics are immaculate. And I will do a future post on that at some point. But we want to make sure that they're getting as much air out as possible with whatever strategy we utilize, pausing and keeping some tension in the abdominal region as they inhale. That's going to set the stage for allowing multidirectional expansion of the thorax, the abdomen, and the pelvis. If we have that, and then we place the body in positions that it struggles to achieve, we ought to be in business. But it has to go with coaching these things effectively and developing that critical eye for having those changes. If you want to learn more on how to do that, I have 2 breathing talks which discuss the mechanics that we're looking for. And of course, you can also attend Human Matrix. I'll link how to get all that stuff in the show notes. To summarize, educating this stuff so you can get better buy-in. The first thing, set the stage. Let them know what they're getting into. Let them know while you're setting the stage how this comprehensive evaluation that we're going to perform will help them get their outcome. Next, show how the limitations that they have relate to their complaint. You can't do this because what I've seen in my evaluation, that can be a contributing factor to why you can't do that. So if we can get you to improve upon these limitations, I think you'll be able to reach your goals more effectively. The third piece, show how breathing can influence these limitations. Your whole body is involved every time you breathe in and breathe out. And if we can teach you to effectively do that, to allow you to put air where it needs to go to loosen up areas, and then utilize the arms and legs in positions that they have a hard time to achieve, you've established an amazing foundation for yourself to move from. And last but not least, the most important piece is to execute. Make sure you are coaching the stuff that you are trying to do with your clients in the most effective manner possible. I have several resources on my site that can help you with that. I hope this was helpful in laying out a plan that shows how you can bridge the gap from what the client wants to what you know they need to get what they want. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you keep it real, but not to the extent where things go wrong. Stay hungry, stay learning, stay moving, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.